timing and spacing, let's take a look at another important role it plays in animation. Timing and spacing is also very critical when it comes to reading an action, whether that action is somewhat more dramatic and maybe slow, something that is more subtle, or something that's action packed and quick. If we don't have the right timing and spacing with the actions that we're animating, well, what we're trying to convey will be lost. So we want to make sure that we get this down. What we have in this scene, if I were to go ahead and hit play, is a punch that's supposed to be intense. It's supposed to be an intense uppercut, but we're losing that intensity because the timing and spacing of the actual punch is way too slow. To make it more action packed, we can speed up our timing here. So let's go ahead and look at how we can modify this using the principle of timing and spacing by really improving what we see before us. I'll go ahead and marquee select the entire character. I'll deselect the global control. So you can see we have too much spacing happening in between the poses that make up this punch animation. So what we could do is kind of tweak this. We can go in and look at where the character is actually going through with the punch and start to bring these closer in. So I'll drag from frames 14 on to about 26. And I'll go ahead and bring these keys back one so that we now have a key on frames 12 and 13 lined up against each other. Then I'll do the same thing again. I'll go ahead and marquee select and grab from frames about 15 to, let's say, about 24, 23. I'll go ahead and bring those keys in a little bit closer and do the same so we don't really have any gaps here between our punch poses. And by doing so, what we get is basically something that's more intense, bringing back that fun factor in this animation. So I'll go ahead and select a few more and bring them closer. Okay, let's see what we have now. Alright, so if we were to go ahead and hit play, now that punch looks so much more appealing to watch because it matches with the intensity of what we're trying to get across. What we had before was too slow, and if our animations are too slow when they shouldn't be, well, that's going to cause our work to look boring, and we definitely want to avoid that. There are certain times where we do want that slow timing again for things that are a little bit more subtle. Maybe the character is even depressed. And then at a case like that, you'd probably want to use some slow timing. But then you might even want to mix it up, add some contrast, which we'll actually be discussing in the next lesson. But do, again, study life and get an idea of how things should move. And then from there, experiment with your timing. Don't just try to match what's happening in real life. If you do that, well, there's no fun in animation. Really experiment and explore what you can basically do to make something more appealing, more fun to watch. Well, with that said, again, that's going to complete this lesson. We have added a more entertaining result to our punch animation. And by doing so, we've also learned the importance of just playing around with our timing. But with that said, what we're going to go ahead and do is stop the lesson here, and in the next lesson we'll take a look at just one more example of working with timing and spacing, this time for contrast in animation.